apparitions. A perfect logic rules our dreams, from swaddling clothes to winding sheet, and urges me, turned 12 again, to climb among the glowing boughs of phosphorescent apple trees, endow equivocating leaves with apparitions formed anew beneath that orchard's halfway moon. I scramble to the utmost limb, survey the things that lie below, a landscape so familiar once it seems to me more real than life. Was I that girl of spells and charms who watched a dazzling world unfold beneath those God-sent summer skies? Who saw such wondrous things in leaves, those figures etched in rain-streaked walls, the silver tracery of clouds, those varied splendors, changing shapes, each place I set my drowsy eyes.
Daughters, Perlina, Catherine, Hillary, and Elizabeth. You emerge auspiciously on the planet, the strangers we crafted in darkness, wearing the bodies we provided, fashioned so they fit you perfectly. You crawl happily at our feet, our fairest of planters on the earth, in that new and perfect flesh. One day you surprise us as women, waiting for our astonished approval as though you'd done a flip or a handspring. Listen to me for once, my progeny. Already time is beginning to turn its back on your father. I speak to you in the words of a man obscured by the gathering shadows. Fall in love wisely. Bear children like yourselves. The final poem I'm going to read is a poem I wrote about my grandmother. We used to always learn about cranes, and they kind of took on a magical image to me. And later on, I read a book by Peter Mathiasen about cranes, and they're in all the patterns, all the migration patterns. When people see them, it's considered in Russia or in Canada or anywhere considered a sign of good luck. So this is my grandmother spoke of cranes, in memory of Catherine Teresa Sherman. A flock of whooping cranes surprised her once, descending from a blow of bank of clouds in Canada a century ago, when she was young, a prairie farmer's wife. They soared by overhead above the barn, and then across Alberta's golden plains. I still can hear their call, she told me late in life, mistaking me for Fred, her son. Of granite stock, she lived through storm and drought, and bore her first live child alone, then took the infant, wrapped in wool, across the miles of icy drifts to show her startled spouse. Around Alberta then, most people thought it lucky to observe a single crane. She'd seen a flock above the barn that day, a mass of white against an azure sky. They sold the struggling farm and moved before the power lines were hung, the marshlands drained. If carcasses were strewn across those plains, well, God gave man dominion over fowl. Not much is left of those Alberta days when women worked in fields beside their men, and flights of whooping cranes passed overhead in skies she swore were somehow bluer then. I admire the fact that they read so well, and maybe someday I'll read as well if I work at it. I'd like to thank Karen Wilson and her friend who are filming this for YouTube and for all their encouragement and support. And I'd like to thank Margaret O'Carroll of Kerry Records, which is, as far as I can tell, the last place you can find really authentic Irish music in this country, for all her help in publicizing this event and for her encouragement and support. I'd like to thank John Elke, my publisher, who came out with this book, even though he was probably having terminal cancer at the time. And I'd also like to thank Jim Elkins, at the University of West Virginia Law School, a good friend, and Joe Shea, who maybe corresponded for the American Reporter for years and put up with all my errors and screw-ups. And finally, I'd like to thank some of the poets in this country who I only knew by reputation a few years ago and who've become my friends and who've encouraged me. X.J. Kennedy for a long time, and more recently Tim Murphy, and so many more I can't even mention their names. And I'd like to thank you all for coming today, this morning, on a Saturday morning.
Tom, you forgot someone. We want to thank you.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much.